Here is the uncomfortable truth about modern fraud. Sometimes it doesn't look like a crime at all. It looks like ambition. It looks like innovation. It looks like a young founder being celebrated, invited on podcasts, praised by investors, and courted by one of the most powerful banks in the world. And in this case, that bank was JPMorgan Chase. In 2021, JPMorgan paid $175 million to acquire a fast-growing fintech startup called Frank. The founder was 31 years old. Her name was Charlie Javas, and just 1 year later, JPMorgan would accuse her of orchestrating one of the most embarrassing corporate frauds in modern banking history. But this story isn't about a single lie or a fake spreadsheet. It's about how trust is manufactured, how numbers become weapons, and how even the most sophisticated institutions can be manipulated when the story feels too perfect to question. Frank positioned itself as a solution to a massive, real problem. Millions of American students struggle to navigate the FAFSA process, the complex system required to apply for federal financial aid. The forms are confusing, the bureaucracy is overwhelming, and small mistakes can cost families thousands of dollars. Frank promised to fix that. The company claimed it could simplify the FAFSA process, help students apply faster, and unlock billions in financial aid that would otherwise go unclaimed. It was a mission that sounded noble, helpful, almost altruistic, and that's exactly why it worked. From the beginning, Frank wasn't selling software, it was selling purpose. Helping students, democratizing access, making education fairer. That narrative mattered more than the product itself. As Frank grew, so did its claims. The company said it had helped millions of students. Not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, millions. It claimed a massive user base that made it incredibly attractive to banks looking to reach young consumers early in their financial lives. JPMorgan wasn't just buying a tool. It was buying access to a generation, students who would need checking accounts, credit cards, loans, mortgages, a lifetime of financial products. And Frank looked like the perfect gateway. But here's where the first loop opens. JPMorgan wasn't just impressed by Frank's story. It was impressed by Frank's numbers, and those numbers would become the foundation of everything that followed. During acquisition talks, Frank claimed it had more than 4 million users. That figure wasn't a small detail. It was the core value driver of the entire deal. JPMorgan executives reportedly asked for proof. They wanted data. They wanted verification. And what they received appeared to confirm the story. Lists of users, email addresses, engagement metrics. Everything looked legitimate, but beneath the surface, something was deeply wrong. Because those users didn't exist. Not in the way Frank claimed. And that gap between appearance and reality is where the scam truly lived. According to JPMorgan's later lawsuit, when Frank was asked to provide evidence of its user base, Charlie Javas and her team allegedly took a drastic step. Instead of delivering real data, they allegedly fabricated it. Millions of fake users, synthetic identities, artificial growth. To make the numbers look real, they reportedly hired a data science professor to generate fake customer profiles. Names, emails, demographics, all designed to withstand surface-level scrutiny. The goal wasn't perfection. It was plausibility. And that's a crucial distinction. Fraud doesn't need to be flawless. It only needs to survive long enough to close the deal. This is the part most people misunderstand about scams involving large institutions. They assume banks like JPMorgan are immune, that they check everything, that they see every angle. But reality is more complicated. Due diligence is not about uncovering every truth. It's about validating assumptions quickly enough to move forward. And when the incentives are aligned toward closing a deal, skepticism often becomes selective. Frank's story fit JPMorgan's strategic goals perfectly. Helping students, expanding reach, looking socially responsible. And so the story kept moving forward. In 2021, the deal closed. JPMorgan acquired Frank for $175 million. Charlie Javas was celebrated as a rising star in she was named to prestigious lists, featured in Media praised as a visionary founder who built a company addressing real social problems. From the outside, it looked like a textbook startup success. But inside JPMorgan, reality began to intrude. After the acquisition, the bank tried to integrate Frank's platform into its systems. It attempted to communicate with the supposed millions of users. Emails bounced. Engagement didn't materialize. The numbers didn't behave like real people. And slowly, the illusion began to crack. Here's the second loop. Fraud doesn't collapse when the lie is told. It collapses when the lie has to function in the real world. Fake users can exist in a spreadsheet. They cannot open emails. They cannot apply for products. They cannot behave like humans. And as JPMorgan attempted to activate Frank's customer base, it reportedly discovered that only a tiny fraction of users were real, not millions. Closer to a few 100,000. Maybe less. At that point, the narrative flipped. The bank was senti buy-in growth. It had bought emptiness. In December 2022, JPMorgan sued Charlie Javas, accusing her of fraud. The lawsuit alleged that she knowingly and intentionally misrepresented Frank's user base to induce the acquisition. Federal prosecutors followed. Javis was arrested and charged with wire fraud, bank fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy. The same founder once praised for innovation was now being described as a calculated manipulator of trust. And the irony is brutal. Frank's mission was about helping students avoid mistakes that cost them money. Yet the company itself allegedly relied on deception at its core. But here's where the story becomes bigger than one person. Charlie Javas didn't invent this playbook. She refined it. This case exposes a modern fraud pattern that's becoming increasingly common. Build a startup around a legitimate problem. Wrap it in a moral mission. Inflate growth metrics. Rely on the assumption that no one will deeply audit what feels socially beneficial. And then exit before reality catches up. It's not about stealing directly from victims. It's about exploiting institutional optimism. JPMorgan, for its part, has denied any wrongdoing and positioned itself as the victim. But the case raises uncomfortable questions about how power evaluates truth, how much skepticism is applied when a story aligns with strategic goals, how metrics become beliefs rather than facts, and how fraud can exist not because no one looked, but because no one looked hard enough. As of now, Charlie Javas has pleaded not guilty and maintains her innocence. The legal process is ongoing, and that matters. Because this story isn't finished, courts will decide guilt. Evidence will be tested, but regardless of the outcome, the pattern is already clear. This wasn't a street-level scam, it was a boardroom-level illusion. A fraud built not on tricking the vulnerable, but on navigating systems that reward growth over verification. And that's the final loop. If this can happen between a 31-year-old founder and the largest bank in America, what does that say about the systems we trust every day? About numbers we assume are real. About narratives we accept because they feel right. The scam didn't succeed because JPMorgan was foolish. It succeeded because belief moved faster than doubt. And in modern finance, that gap is where the biggest failures are born. If you want to understand how modern scams really work, not the obvious ones, but the quiet, polished, institutional ones that operate behind headlines and press releases, stay with this channel, because the most dangerous frauds don't look illegal. They look impressive, and the next one is already being built.